Hey everybody, so today we're going to take a look at some coaching footage for Highland Broadsword, and this is really about the delivery of an advanced lesson to a student. So the student is newly got his advanced rank, a lion rank with Storica Defensa, and what we're really taking a look at here is the way that the lesson is delivered to him and adding layers of difficulty. So this is an option style of lesson, and I know that Coach Jim from SD is going to be making a video on different types of lessons, so we won't get into that, like different types. Here, what we're really looking at is how we're building layers of difficulty onto this lesson. The first part of it is it's a lesson based around a feint. And a feint, in an ideal world, in textbooks, what you'll see is a feint draws out a defensive action. And that is ideal, but it's not true. It's not true. There's a huge variety of actions that can come out of a feint. So what we look at here is the different options that can happen from there, and we make them at random so that the student is fencing with what we would call in SD and modern fencing open-eyed. So that means that they are assessing constantly throughout the action to make sure that they're responding to what is happening rather than trying to anticipate what is happening, which is kind of called close-eyed. So close-eyed is almost like you're rolling the dice or playing rock, paper, scissors. Open-eyed is you try to get them to show their hand first, and then you adapt to that. So it's almost like in rock, paper, scissors, it would be cheating. You see what the person's doing, and you adapt based on that, your result. That's what we want for fencing, is we want control from beginning to the end. So the first option here is he begins his feint, and from there, I do nothing, he attacks direct. Second option is he begins his feint, I go to parry, he does a cut over top, disengages, and hits to the other line. The next one is a double feint, so he does his feint, I parry 2 times, and he goes around it both times and hits me on the final action. From there, because a fencer who's fighting against you won't necessarily respond defensively, I throw in a counterattack. So he feints and then parry ripostes. And then the final one that I kind of throw in is random leg attacks. So yeah, it's risky. If someone feints at you and their point is near your face, it's not always a good idea to attack the leg. That said, people do it anyway, and it is definitely better to void the leg and counter than it is just to be hit. We cannot control what other people do. Sometimes it's also a valid time to hit because they've often feinted with a step forward of their leg, or at least loaded up on the front leg, and that means they're super vulnerable to being hit. So let's take a look at how that plays out. And again, we are doing this on stable footing. So that means not a ton of movement before and after. And really we're focusing on the options. So a little bit of distance change, but not a lot. So there I threw in a counterattack and step back. He had to follow me with a lunge. There, single feint, double feint, double feint, double feint, again. And there he kind of gets screwed up because he really should have only done the single feint, but he started the other one. And so that's the thing about advanced students, is they self-correct. So he knew that on that one, he knew that he had lunged too soon. If you go back, so he started his feint, started going lunging, and you see I parried, so he didn't wait long enough. And so he had to adapt on the change, which is fine. He ended up finishing it properly, but that came out a little bit late. It would have been safer if he waited a little bit. But that's also an advanced skill, is changing on the lunge. So it was a mistake, but he actually made up for it. It was totally fine. There, slip the leg. There, I actually threw a feint in. So instead of just a normal counterattack, I did an indirect counterattack. And he parried it anyway. So really just like making stuff up sometimes or doing random things is really, really good for students' problem solving. So let's add on a layer of difficulty. The reason I went to the next phase is because he was pretty darn successful at the first one. That meant that, there was a little bit of difficulty, a little bit of corrections, but most of what he did was right there. And that tells me that he's ready to make it more real. So the next one we do is moving forward and backwards. So that if you've ever tried to hit moving targets, it's difficult. And I'm constantly changing. I'm trying to mess up his rhythm sometimes here, and he has to adapt. So there, he screwed that up. He got hit on the leg, and so then what I do is I throw a bunch of leg cuts at him so that he gets it right and feels confident with it. And that's how you kind of diagnose a problem and you fix it, and he's self-correcting now. You can see he's getting a little tired because this was at the end of the lesson, but he's still doing real good. There, single feint, and that's good. Okay, so now the third layer of difficulty is that Hema is generally fought in a field rather than a piece, so we're going to move around at 360 degrees, just like the old broadsword sources say, and really like the traversing has become a real signature part of our style here. It basically will buy you out a little bit of time, cause the opponent to readjust. Sometimes you can scramble for a little bit of an advantage before going in, but it's a pretty decent thing to do so long as you don't get too caught up in it. But it adds a layer of difficulty. So there you can see he missed. So what happened there? I traversed to the side, threw an attack, moved off to the side and a little bit back, and that caused him to misjudge. He just missed my head. And so what do I do as a coach? I throw the same thing again. There, and then he targets it properly. He hits and then moves back. You can see it's a little bit more difficult with the angles. So trying to make everything work when we can move in every direction is very difficult, and that's what resembles fencing. Now he's just going direct, so you always want to switch it up between doing a simple thing and doing something complicated so that he is always responding in the moment to what is actually happening in real time rather than anticipating what he should do in a drill. That one he got right, but he knew that he would be too late with a counterattack. So I throw it again. And again. And then he gets back into it, and that's the best way to teach somebody how to defend their leg. Single feint. You can see it's challenging when the distance is changing like that and the angles are changing. He has to pivot, move forward, move back. There's a lot of moving parts. And he's doing well. A beginner couldn't do that. Now you can see he screwed up the distance because he started advancing a little too close. There, and there he stays, and he should be just landing with the tip there. So with all that in mind, this is how you really raise somebody from a beginner all the way to an advanced student, is by adding layers of difficulty, making it closer. Is the plastron lesson enough to teach somebody fencing? And the answer is no. It's definitely the best tool for developing technical skill, just like holding pads is the best tool for that. This is the very best tool. It's even better than pads, actually, because you're hitting the target rather than a few inches away from them, like in boxing or Muay Thai. This is the best tool that we have for teaching, and it produces results very fast. You can get somebody from a beginner into an advanced stage in maybe a couple years doing this, but the key is they also have to be bouting a lot. And not just bouting, not just fencing, but doing learning fencing, style fencing, so like weighted bouting, fencing games to develop all the necessary skills. Because as the coach right now, I am letting him hit me when he does the correct thing. And I am screwing it up a little bit, but not to the degree that an opponent who doesn't want to be hit will do. And so what you're doing is you're just adding layers of difficulty, adding more and more decisions, not just in the blade action, but also in distance. And they have to adapt to that. And that thinking, that open-eyed fencing is the key to all fencing. It's the deepest secret that you could possibly learn, is to adapt on the fly and to rapidly make decisions. It's the difference between winning a bout and not. So keep that in mind when you're coaching, and definitely if you're interested in joining Storica Defensa, shoot a comment and I could hook you up with that.